There's an island in the Pacific where everyone has the same great-great-great-grandfather, speaks a language no outsider can understand, and bans anyone from leaving or entering. Population, 35 and shrinking. They'd rather go extinct than let the outside world in. And it all started in 1863 when one lonely British carpenter bought 3 wives and invented a rotating marriage schedule. His name was William Marsters, and he was 38 years old when he arrived on Palmerston Atoll with 100 pounds and a dream. The island was paradise, white sand beaches, crystal lagoons, and thousands of coconut palms. Population, 0. His plan was simple: grow coconuts, make money, retire rich. After 2 years of crushing loneliness, Marsters sailed to nearby Penryn and returned with 3 Polynesian women, Sarah, Matavia, and Tepu. Some say they were cousins, others claimed they were sisters. The truth died with them. But Marsters didn't just take 3 wives, he organized them like a business. He built 3 separate houses on different parts of the tiny atoll, each woman getting her own domain. Then he created a schedule that would make a corporate manager proud. Monday, Tuesday with Sarah, Wednesday, Thursday with Matavia, Friday, Saturday with Tepu, Sunday he rested, alone in a 4th house. The women had no choice. Palmerston was hundreds of miles from the nearest inhabited island, and ships came maybe twice a year. They were trapped in paradise with a man who'd invented his own rotating marriage system. Then the children started arriving. Lots of children. By the time William Marsters died in 1899, he had fathered 23 children across his 3 wives. And here's where the nightmare began. When those children grew up, there was nobody to marry except each other. The first generation of Marsters' children intermarried, half-siblings marrying half-siblings. Their children did the same, then their children, then their children. For over 160 years, virtually every marriage on Palmerston has been between cousins, second cousins, or closer. Today, every single one of the island's 35 residents shares the same great-great-great-grandfather. Genetic testing in 2018 revealed that the average Palmerston Islander shares more DNA with their neighbors than most siblings share with each other. They're not just related, they're essentially genetic variations of the same family template copied and pasted for 6 generations. The island is still split into 3 clans, each descended from one original wife. They live in the exact same sections their great-great-great-grandmothers occupied 160 years ago. Sarah's descendants on the east, Matavia's family on the west, Tepu's clan in the center. The divisions aren't written anywhere, they're just known, passed down like genetic memory. There were only 3 family names on the entire island: Marsters, Neds, and Natapuna. Your last name tells you which wife you descend from, which part of the island you're from, and theoretically, who you're allowed to marry. The rule, not your own clan. Though, with only 35 people, that rule gets bent out of necessity. But the genetics aren't even the strangest part. It's the culture that evolved from total isolation. Because everyone on Palmerston is related, they develop their own language. Not a dialect or an accent, a completely unique hybrid that linguists call Palmerston English, but cannot decode. In 2011, a team of linguists from New Zealand spent 6 months on the island trying to study it. They recorded hundreds of hours of conversations, interviewed elders, and attempted to create a dictionary. They gave up. The language evolves too fast, new words invented constantly, old words changing meaning weekly, grammatical structures that don't exist in English or any Polynesian language. One frustrated researcher called it watching a new language being born in real time, except we can't understand the delivery room. The islanders weaponize this language barrier. When outsiders visit, they speak broken English. When they want privacy, they switch to Palmerston English. In 2012, a BBC documentary crew brought a professional translator, a Cook Islander fluent in English and 5 Polynesian languages. He was completely useless. He said, "They're speaking English. I can hear English words, but I have no idea what they're saying. It's like listening to a code I'm not supposed to crack." The laws are even stranger. Palmerston has no written legal code, no police, no courts, no elected officials. Everything is decided by the matriarchs, the eldest women from each of the 3 clans. They meet under a massive banyan tree, supposedly grown from a cutting planted by Marsters himself, and make decisions by consensus. Their word is absolute. There is no appeal. What do they decide? Property disputes over the communally owned island, fishing rights, house repairs, and most importantly, marriage. With only 35 people, all closely related, every wedding requires approval from all 3 matriarchs. They investigate genealogy to ensure couples aren't too closely related, though the definition of too close has gotten dangerously looser over the decades. It had to, or the population would have collapsed entirely. And outsiders? Absolutely forbidden. In 1997, a French yachtsman named Pierre Marchand fell in love with an island woman during a 3-day stopover. He sailed away, but couldn't forget her. 6 months later, he returned and formally asked the matriarchs for permission to marry her. The answer was swift and absolute. No. Not because he was French, not because of his age or character, but because he wasn't descended from William Marsters. He argued that fresh genetics would save the island, that genetic disorders were getting worse with each generation, that they desperately needed outside blood. The matriarchs listened politely, thanked him for his concern, and said no again. The young woman was forbidden to leave with him. He sailed away alone and never returned. 2 years later, in 1999, the woman married her second cousin. That story is still told on the island as a warning. It reinforced their most sacred rule: no contamination from the outside world. Not just genetic contamination, cultural contamination. When the BBC crew visited in 2012, they were forced to sign written agreements before stepping on shore. No teaching children about smartphones, no showing photographs of cities, no discussing politics or religion from outside the Cook Islands. One crew member made the mistake of showing a teenage boy a YouTube video on his phone. An elder saw it, reported it to the matriarchs, and the entire BBC crew was expelled from the island a day early. The teenager was publicly reprimanded. The BBC crew was permanently banned from ever returning. Why the paranoia? Why the absolute refusal to engage with modernity? According to island legend, William Marsters' final words on his deathbed in 1899 were, "Keep the island pure. Live by our own ways. Let no outsider change what we've built." Whether he actually said this is impossible to verify. The legend wasn't written down until the 1970s, more than 70 years after his death. But it doesn't matter if the words are real. The islanders believe them, and belief shapes reality more than facts ever could. The result? A population committing slow, deliberate suicide. Genetic disorders are epidemic on Palmerston. Rates of diabetes, heart disease, club feet, developmental disabilities, and rare genetic conditions that are 10 times higher than anywhere else in the Pacific. In 2015, a medical team from New Zealand offered free genetic counseling, health screenings, and family planning education. The matriarchs refused on behalf of everyone. Traditional medicine, they insisted, had sustained the island for a century. It would continue to work. Except it isn't working. The young people know it, and they're leaving. In the last 20 years, more than half of Palmerston's youth have moved to Rarotonga or New Zealand for education. Most never return. They discover reliable electricity, internet access, career opportunities, and the revolutionary concept of marrying someone who isn't their third cousin. The outside world isn't just bigger, it's genetically healthier and infinitely more free. The families know their way of life is dying. The matriarchs are in their 70s and 80s. When they die, who will enforce the old rules? The middle-aged adults talk about preserving tradition, but their children are on Facebook, posting photos and chatting with Cook Islanders who openly call Palmerston that creepy cult island. In 2013, the population dropped to 35, the lowest number ever recorded. There hasn't been a birth on the island in 3 years. The youngest child is 7 years old. At this rate, demographers predict Palmerston will be completely abandoned by 2070, which makes the island's refusal to cooperate even more tragic.
Scientists desperately want to study the population before it disappears. Palmerston represents an unprecedented case of extreme genetic and cultural isolation, a living laboratory for understanding how small populations and languages evolve in total isolation. But the families refuse every request. "We're not lab rats," one elderly woman told a persistent researcher from Oxford University. "We're people. Let us die with dignity." And so they are, slowly, stubbornly, tragically. Today, if you sail to Palmerston Atoll, you'll see neat wooden houses, a small solar panel array, and endless rows of coconut trees. You might see people fishing in the turquoise lagoon or tending small gardens, but you will not be allowed to land. The families will gather, vote on whether to permit you ashore, and unless you have a genuine medical emergency or official government business, they will politely signal you to move on. Because Palmerston isn't just an island anymore. It's a living monument to one man's accidental experiment in genetic isolation. It's a warning about what happens when a population refuses to change even as it dies. And it's proof that sometimes paradise is just another word for a very beautiful prison. One man, 3 wives, 1 coconut plantation. 160 years of consequences. 35 people who would rather disappear than let the outside world save them. William Marsters came to an empty island in 1863, wanting to grow coconuts and die rich. Instead, he created a genetic time bomb that's been ticking for 6 generations. The coconuts are still growing. His descendants are running out of time.